cloud?
I think you
because it will be converted to an MP4. Okay, that's fine as well. Yeah, cool. Okay, let's start. Hi, everyone. Welcome to the Data Scientist podcast. I'm very happy to have here with us today Lance Parker, the CEO of BankX. Thank you, Lance, for being one more time with us.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. We talk a lot, so I like to keep up with everything that's going on. Absolutely. So good to be here.
Absolutely. So for those of you who don't know, I'm the tokenomics auditor for BankX, which is a revolutionary stablecoin protocol. It's going to launch this year, 2022. And me and Lance today, we're going to talk about the current state of the crypto market, because there's so many things happening that I think we have to comment on a few of those. And I'd like to start by getting your thoughts on some of the troubles we've seen of some very big companies like Voyager Digital, Stelios, 3 Arrows Capital, like bankruptcies, liquidations, users not being able to retrieve their funds. Like what is really going on? What's your opinion on this whole space?
So they're pausing withdrawals, they're filing bankruptcy. So certainly Voyager Digital is one of those filing bankruptcy. Celsius, who I think their cause was a mismanagement of the user funds, because they're trying to aggressively look for larger returns to keep up with what they've paid previously. Big one is 3 Arrows, that capital that's been in bankruptcy. I think because it's all Stylianos, the crypto market's very interrelated, right? I was studying a bit on 3 Arrows Capital, and the beginning of their demise was the investment of over 500 million in Luna. So certainly that collapse, that 550 million worth of Luna is now worth $600 or something. Something. So it's pretty dramatic, right? When I've never seen a loss like that so quickly. So I think there's a lesson in this that we're going to come out of, where the crypto market understands that we need to move further and further towards decentralization. So when you have a single entity or person managing user funds or a hedge fund or trading, like in the case of Voyager Digital, that we need to move to a decentralized environment where there's not one single person making decisions or doing all of this, right? And so I think that's the major lesson that we're going to get out of this, Stylianos, from that perspective. And then I think there's some lessons that I talk about with Terra Luna. I think the first thing before that is just to say that, as you know, BankX, we're much more inspired by Frax rather than Terra Luna. Terra Luna is just one of the price stabilization mechanisms that we've used, which you and I have always discussed, that a stable coin always needs collateral. And we feel that the Terra Luna price stabilization mechanism works well most of the time. It just can't be relied on fully, and they need collateral backing it. Which I think Terra Luna learned knew that they were just a little bit late, and then they were trying to redesign, redesign that. So I think that's the two major lessons from the Terra Luna collapse: is a stablecoin needs collateral from the moment of design and launch, and then their price stabilization mechanism will work. It's just not 100% foolproof, but it can be added with a bunch of other things. And so that's generally what I kind of think about this, Stylianos, with all the things we're seeing and the collapse of Terra Luna and all of that.
Yeah, I think that for 3 Arrows Capital, I did a bit of digging, and it looks like there were some really shady things happening, which, I mean, I think they wouldn't happen as easily in the mainstream financial markets. It looks like 3 Arrows Capital were essentially gambling on borrowed money, and they borrowed crypto in order to invest. And I'm not sure how good the strategy was, because obviously, when the tide rises, how the saying goes, like it rises all ships. And when you're in a bull market, like it's really easy to say you're a top trader, and then when everything started crashing, they found themselves without really the means to repay back their loans. And this kind of makes you worry as to who's investing in these companies and who's auditing these companies. I do agree that decentralization can be like a cure to all of that, because there's so many shady things these companies are doing. It's the same like with Celsius, like, oh, do they have enough funds? Are they liquid? Are they not liquid? Is this exchange liquid? Is it not liquid? Like, I feel that the moment that we reach the middle or point of a bull run, there are many people, like from the top to the bottom, who believe that the bull run is going to last forever, so they can just take crazy risks. And then all of these like things, like whether it's gambling on borrowed money or, giving away very high interest rates like Anchor Protocol did with Terra Luna, Celsius, etc. They're like different variants of the Ponzi scheme, more or less.
Yeah, that's been sort of the thought behind Anchor Protocol, is how is Terra Luna paying these big returns? And so they're not based on sound economic principles, which you and I talk a lot about with BankX and making, right? Yeah.
And I think it's and I think this might be something that we're going to see in the next bull run as well. Hopefully not, but every bull run has a way to surprise us, like 2017, 2018 were ICOs. But that being said, I think there's probably regulation looming on the horizon, and I think the regulators in all the major countries and trading blocs like the EU, US, UK, now they probably have lots of ammunition after the collapse of Terra Luna and what's happening with the crypto markets and Voyager and Three Arrows and Celsius, to say, hey, we need some additional regulation. So what's your take on that? Do you have a feel as to what we might see in the near future, this year at least?
Yeah, I mean, they're definitely using that as a catalyst to push through their laws, which they always do, right? They wait for an event or create an event. Generally, the regulation, I think, is coming from the people who don't like crypto, right? So the G7 formed the Financial Action Task Force in 1989. And so a lot of these crypto regulations that are being pushed upon countries, and especially EU, with the latest, the sort of most recent regulations, is coming out of the FATF, right? So some of the things they're doing, right? They passed the market in crypto assets, MiCA, and that's really, going after centralized exchanges and stable coins, which is really in line with them protecting fiat. So I think that's a lot of the motivation with this, is the threat of crypto. I think I saw something about any transaction over 1,000 euros would need to be KYC'd. They want to decide, or the law does allow them, or the bill that passed allow them to decide which crypto is listed on centralized exchanges. So they have the ability to do that. Yeah, so anything over 200 million in transactions a day, they would limit that. It sets standards for reserves of stable coins, which I think could be a good thing for centralized USD backed stable
That's
coins.
actually true for USDT especially, which again, it's
for Tether,
financial backing has been the topic of debate for years.
Yeah. The only issue is it's always going to be an overreach at some point. So I think the FATF's goal, I think, is to have complete monitoring of wallets and transactions, which I don't think is a good thing, right? So they always try to claim crypto is being used for money laundering and all of these bad things that people do, but so is the US dollar. So I don't know. I think we have to be very careful with what they do. So I think I often I've written and talked about that, Stylianos, where I think for centralized stable coins and USD backed ones, those are going to be brought into the banking system through regulation, which I think they're doing. But for decentralized stable coins that have the same characteristics of sort of pure crypto, I don't know really what they're going to do with those. If everything's decentralized, there's really no way to stop people from using a decentralized exchange. From, if you have a fully decentralized stable coin that you can mint and and send around. I don't know what regulation would do there. So I think there's sort of two takes on that. It'd be what
I think they're
thinking.
trying to also fight crypto adoption, because the thing is that if everything ends up being decentralized, like exchanges, stable coins, and like many other services offered on Web3. And then if BTC or other cryptos become commonly accepted mediums of exchange, then there's nothing preventing me from, I don't know, buying a physical good or a service, let's say buying a car, using Bitcoin. So at that point, governments essentially lose power. This is what happens, right? And they can say, oh, you can't do this transaction or that transaction on a centralized exchange. And, there's always problems when you're going to convert your crypto to fiat and all that. But again, they can't if everything's decentralized and BTC or some other crypto becomes a commonly accepted token of exchange, then there's nothing they can do to limit this. And I think this is what they're trying to prevent from happening, because they know that they're going to lose the power. But I think there's a non-zero probability that this is actually going to happen, that at least a part of the society is going to start using crypto for transactions. I don't know how long it's going to take, whether it's going to be 5 or 10 years. But I do believe it's going to happen sooner or later. What's your take on that?
Well, yeah, I don't think there's any way to stop it.
Yeah.
Stylianos, I mean, it's just a matter of time where the right crypto or stable coin comes along where it catches on. And that's why they're going after centralized exchanges, USD stablecoin issuers. That's really trying to, you could really cause some issues there from a centralized standpoint. But if the right one comes along, I just I'm kind of like you. I think there's a 0% probability they'll be able to stop it, because they would have turned off Bitcoin if they could have, to stop this whole this whole movement, right? If they could have. So yeah, I'm like you. I don't think, it's not a question of if, it's a question of when.
Yeah, absolutely. And what's your take on the current state of the crypto market? I mean, we're obviously in a bear market, and I mean, we know these cycles come and go. Something which astounds me is how many people on Twitter, they panic, they're like, everything's going to zero, or other people at the sign of a relief rally, they're like, oh, it's going to the moon again. I don't know. It's like, there seems to be like many retail investors, they're just not mature at all, I guess, as investors. But I personally don't worry too much. I don't know what your take on this, but I'm like, it's just a natural cycle. It's like forest fires during the summer season in certain countries. It's part of the ecosystem. It has to happen.
It just happens. Same thing. I'm not too worried about it. I think it's a time to build. It's a time to release. I actually think it's okay to release on a bear market, so that you have a protocol that's ready for the bull market. But I mentioned this on an AMA that I think what we're going to come out of this bear market with is the lesson that we need to further decentralize, because as a part of this bear market, we've gotten all of these protocols that are basically going to go away, or have to be restructured or revamped, right? I mean, you wiped, what was Terra Luna? That was about 40 or 50 billion, or I don't even know what the number was, of just that was wiped out, which is unfortunate. And then you have these other, centralized to a point hedge fund exchanges and loan protocols that just are going to go away or restructured. So I think if we come out with that lesson, and we can come out with new protocols that are, at a full decentralized sort of design, which is what we've talked about with BankX. I mean, it's always been, taking it all the way through and moving the ball down the field for a stable coin and decentralization. I think I think we'll come out with that lesson. So feeling pretty good about what we're doing.
So when is BankX going to launch?
So we're in smart contract security audit now. It started July 4th with Coin Fabric. So that's going to be 7 weeks, putting us a third week in August. So we're targeting September.
Perfect.
So We'll be multi-chain. It's looking like ETH, depending on ETH2, how that goes, that we launch on that first. If there's some slowdown there, we'd launch on Binance first, and then we'll go through the different chains that we'll deploy BankX on. So
okay, that's amazing. Yeah, and can you the URL of BankX, if I'm not mistaken, is bankx.io, right?
Yeah.
Okay, perfect. In case someone wants to learn more about the project.
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay, amazing. Great stuff.
Yep.
Cool.
Yeah,
So
it's exciting. I wish we were done the audit now, but you and I have been talking about some of the early feedback, and so I think we're in pretty good shape from what they're finding.
Yeah, for anyone who's interested in,
right?
Yeah, for anyone who's listening and interested to learn more about BankX, make sure to visit bankx.io. I've been personally involved in this project. I think it's going to be the future of decentralized stablecoins. Takes the best ideas from many different protocols, and also it adds some of its own unique magic on top. I'm very happy to design parts of the system, and I think it definitely demonstrates that there can be a decentralized stablecoin. Actually, the TESSERACT Academy did research amongst around 30 blockchain experts a couple of months ago when Terra Luna collapsed. And I think around 50% of the experts said that they still believe that algorithmic stablecoins can work to some extent. So I think everyone had the feeling that it's not that because Terra Luna died that this thing can't work. It's just that it wasn't built properly. And I completely agree with this. And I think BankX is like the correct version of this vision. so everyone who's listening, stay tuned.
We had that early on too, Stylianos. I think that's so the market's sort of proving what our initial thoughts were. And then when we started working with you, just what your impression was too. So yeah, it's pretty exciting. So
perfect. Amazing. So thank you, Lance. I think your commentary is always appreciated.
Oh, thank you, sir. Yeah, it's always good to talk with you, Stylianos. I appreciate
Absolutely. And thanks everyone for listening in. If you want to hear more or learn more about data science, AI, and blockchain, make sure to visit thedatascientist.com and make sure to check out for this podcast, both on YouTube, but also on Spotify. Thank you and have a good rest of the day. Bye.